Welcome to another RealTime Fantasy Sports show. I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and I'm proud to be joined by my son, Henry Paur, today. Henry, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you filling in for Logan this week.
Yeah, no problem.
So it should be a fun show. Henry and I are going to talk about under the radar plays for week 10. And we are going to, as always, answer any questions you might have, as well as we're going through all the games. We preview all the games. We talk about players that you might not think about starting this week as well, especially with 4 teams on a bye. And there's some really good teams on a bye this week, Henry. The Chiefs, the Dolphins, and the Eagles are 3 of the teams on the bye. The Rams as well, not quite as good, but those are some really good teams that are off this week. What do you think?
Yeah, those are 3 huge teams. A lot of those players have had great impact on fantasy teams this year. And same with the Rams. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are also big name players that are missing out this week of fantasy.
Yep, definitely. So it's going to be tough to fill some of those lineups. That's why we thought it might be a good idea to do under the radar plays this week, because you might have to start some players that you might not normally start because of these great teams on a bye this week. The Eagles, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Rams once again are on a bye. So hopefully you can get through it, win your games this week. It's a crucial week of games, Henry. It's week 10 already. Kind of crazy that it's this deep into the season.
Yeah, this season's gone by fast already, and we're already halfway done at the fantasy year and regular season. Playoffs are coming.
So if you're wondering why Henry's here, he's done the video with me several times before, but unfortunately he's been under the weather this week and he's still battling a fever. So he's still home from school, but you can help me out. I'm putting you to work, Henry, right?
Yep.
So it should be fun with him on the show today. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We're happy to answer anything you might have. And we're going to go over all these games as well. Before we do that, though, we have a great contest we're running this week at RealTime Fantasy Sports. It's our super shootout game. So it places 30 places deep. It's just $10 to play. It sells out every time. So here's how it works. You pick players from a 3-game slate. So there's just a Sunday slate, which is 3 games. So you can pick any players from those 3 games for just $10. Whoever scores the most points wins. It's 70% sold out already. Sells out every week. Take advantage of our promo code right now as well. Go to rtsports.com. And if you want to put in the promo code ALARM23 for first-time users, it's a 100% deposit match up to $200. So you really want to take advantage of that. You can see it up there on the screen right there, rtsports.com/alarm promo code alarm23, 100% deposit match up to $200. You can get in this great super shootout game. It's a lot of fun. As I said, 3-game slate, pick any players you want. Whoever finishes tops overall wins $1,000. So it's just $10 to play for a chance to win $1,000. It places 30 deep as well. So it's a great contest, a lot of fun, always sells out. So Henry, you might have to get in that one. You'd like to do that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Got to get in on it.
Yep, and the pick'em games we have are a lot of fun. Also, you do those every week. Also, Henry, you like to try to take advantage of that contest, and also our DFS games too. A lot of fun here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Go to rtsports.com to check out all the games we have to offer. All right, Henry, you ready to jump into this and talk about our under the radar plays for this week? We're really excited about this week of games, despite some teams being off. There's some good matchups this week for sure, don't you think, Henry?
Yeah, I agree. There's some great matchups. I mean, even with, like you said, Dolphins, Rams, Chiefs, all on byes. I mean, there's still a lot of good games with those teams being out.
Unfortunately, the Thursday night game's not one of them. That's tonight. You're watching live. That's the first game. Panthers 1-7 at the Bears 2-7. Not a very exciting game. But there are some under the radar plays. I think there's a couple you can several different options because there's not a lot of marquee players in this game. So who's your under the radar play for this one?
So I had the Bears defense. They've had a couple pretty good games this year, and now they're going to play a team that Indy's defense just had, I want to say, 20-plus fantasy points against, 2 pick sixes. I mean, I could see this Bears defense having a great game, especially against a rookie quarterback, Bryce Young, as he's been struggling a little bit lately.
Yep, definitely. Who do you like to win in this game before I move on to my pick? Panthers at Bears.
I'll go with the Bears just for the fact that I feel like the Panthers, I can't really trust them that much right now. I mean, Bryce Young hasn't looked the part, which I don't think is much of his part, especially if Brian Burns also out, but they don't have much offense going right now for him.
That offensive line's a train wreck. It's not giving him any time. I think that's the difference. I do think CJ Stroud's a better quarterback, but if you look at the overall picture, the offensive line is not nearly as good in Carolina as it is in Houston. So that's part of the reason I think that Bryce Young's having struggle. So here's my under the radar pick. It's Jonathan Mingo. So he's been playing a lot more lately, 96% of the snaps last week, 99% the previous game. I think it's just a matter of time before he has a breakout game, a huge game. Why not this week against the Bears? Bears pretty good against the run, but they're 15th. They allow the 15th most fantasy points to receivers, 25th overall against the pass. So not very good in regards there. So I think the Panthers could have success throwing the ball. And I think Mingo could have a big game in this matchup, maybe his best to date. All right, Henry, we already got our first question up there. You see it? It's would you trade Chris Olave and Kyron Williams for Justin Jefferson? Other running backs are Kamara, Hall, Javante, Achane, and Moss. What do you think?
I think I might lean towards doing that when Jefferson comes back. Those running backs you already have are very solid. Hall and Kamara are great starts any day of the week.
Williams has been playing
HA
better.
once he comes back. Yeah, and Olave is kind of, I would say, up and down. And with Dobbs, how he played last week, I mean, Jefferson could have a great impact still, even without Kirk Cousins.
You're giving up a lot, but if you are not playing Olave or if he's like number 3 on your depth chart at receiver, I think it makes sense. Jefferson, I don't know if he's going to play this week. He might miss next week as well, but he's a difference maker, and I don't think Dobbs is a terrible QB by any means. He showed that last week coming off the bench without any practice with those first teamers and somehow led them to victory. So I think Jefferson has value. Kyron Williams has been very good as well, but you're really deep there. I almost wish you could get another insurance piece, maybe at receiver, maybe a low-end receiver that you could use while Jefferson's out, maybe a throw-in that maybe this player's not used, the owner's not using, that's on their bench just to, help with Jefferson while he's out maybe the next game or two. So that's maybe what I would do there. But overall, I think it might be worth it, getting that marquee number 1 receiver. All right, Henry, let's move on to the next game. Colts 4-5 at the Patriots 2-7. This is another Germany game, I believe. And the rumor is if the Patriots don't win, that Belichick could be fired after the game. So that's something to definitely watch there. Who's your under the radar play for this one?
I have Demario Douglas with the Patriots. So last week he took over the wide receiver 1 role with no Kendrick Bourne out, and he had a 10-point double-digit game. And I feel like, I think they're going to be down in this one. I'm going to have the Colts winning this one. So they're going to throw the ball a lot. And after last week, he got a ton of targets, and they saw other receivers not follow through with a lot of things, like Juju dropping the ball and it lead to an interception in the final drive. And I'm going to assume Mac Jones goes to the reassured target of Demario Douglas this week.
Yeah, I think Douglas is the top pass catcher at receiver. I like that call. He's been playing better lately. I agree with you. I think the Patriots are going to lose this game playing from behind. So I'm looking at the tight end, Hunter Henry. I think he could be intriguing in this matchup. Scored his 3rd touchdown of the season last week. He has 7 receptions his last 2 games, getting a little more involved recently. He has 3 games this season with 13+ fantasy points. Colts also allow the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends, 24th overall against the pass. So I think Henry could do well in this matchup. All right, next game, Browns 5-3 at the Ravens 7-2. Ravens playing some of the best football out there these days. They look tremendous. This is a big division rival game here. Could be a big game. Who do you like as your sleeper playing this matchup?
So I actually do not have one in this one. I do not want much of a part of this one besides most of those big name players. These are 2 probably top 5 or top 3 defenses in football. There's not going to be a lot of scoring in this one. So I don't know how I really feel about this. Outside of Lamar and Mark Andrews and players like that, not much you can do, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it is a sketchy game to play fringe players. So when I'm looking at playing fringe players, I'd rather do it with high-scoring matchups, and this one probably should not be very high-scoring. Do you think the Ravens win this game at home, or do you think it's going to be an upset with the Browns?
Yeah, I'll take the Ravens in this one. The Browns' offense is atrocious right now. Deshaun Watson has not lived up to what he was supposed to be. The Ravens are, like you said, playing some of the best football in the league. They might be the best team in the AFC right now. This team's legit.
You're sporting a Ravens jersey right now as well, right?
I am right now.
All right. So I like the Ravens to win too. I think it'll be a good game though. I do like it being low scoring, but I do have a fringe player that I would consider looking at if you're in deeper formats. That's Cedric Tillman with the Browns. So with Donovan Peoples-Jones gone, Tillman played a season high 74% of the snaps last week. He had just a catch in the game, but I'm encouraged by the workload. He's talented, a big, tall receiver, can get down the field. I think they're going to be playing from behind the Browns, have to throw the ball against a high-powered Ravens team. So I think he could be worth a deep dive. Again, a little bit of a deeper dive here with Tillman, but you never know. He could end up surprising here. He's getting a lot of playing time. He's a big play threat. They're going to be throwing the ball. So maybe a cheap DFS option if you want to save there and go big on other players. I'd consider him for that matchup. All right, Henry, next game, Texans 4-4 at the Bengals 5-3. Bengals resurging right now, looking like one of the best teams in football. I think they're a heavy favorite out of Vegas. I'm not sure what the lines are, but to go to the Super Bowl at this point. So what do you think about that
Wow.
Bengals team right now? You excited about them?
I mean, yeah, I mean, if you look at them at the beginning of the year, Joe Burrow, he hurt his calf, I believe, and he couldn't run. And now that was the big thing that he said now that's like improving his game and letting him play like he did the last couple of years. And now he looks back to what he was, and that offense is dangerous. And that defense has improved too, especially with the young players now coming through in the second and third year.
I agree. So I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Both offenses really good. Texans, Bengals. CJ Stroud looked amazing last week. What about an under the radar play for you in this matchup?
So I have Dalton Schultz, but I'd almost take a lot of those Texans receivers after watching what Stroud did last week. But Dalton Schultz just had his best game of the year last week, and now he gets a Bengals secondary. It hasn't been very good against a tight end this year. And I can see Schultz getting a lot of targets in this one. He was targeting the red zone a good amount last week, and I could see him having a huge game again against Cincinnati.
So ironically, I picked a tight end as well, but not Schultz. I went the other way with Irv Smith. So he's actually been a disappointment. He's actually one of Logan Glasser's favorite picks. He always takes Irv Smith in drafts for whatever reason. I give him a hard time about it because he hasn't lived up to the hype just yet. But he played well last week, scored his first touchdown of the season. It looked like the Bengals were trying to make it a point to get the tight ends involved. They had the other tight end involved. His name is I can't remember at this point. Do you remember the other tight end, Henry? The number 2 they were using. They picked him up. I can't remember.
I can't remember his name.
Regardless, they got more looks, Smith and him, early in that game. So I think they're looking at featuring the tight end a little more, and that could really be the case this week against Houston. They've been awful against the tight end. They have allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So I would not be surprised if Smith finds the end zone once again. So it should be a good matchup for both these tight ends. I like that, Henry, with your call with Schultz as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next game, I think this is one of the best games of the week, in my opinion, Henry. 49ers 5-3 coming out of a bye against the Jags 6-2. First of all, who do you think wins this game? Are the 49ers going to come out of that bye and win? What's going on there?
Man, both these teams are kind of their buys, and both have been legit this year. I don't really know. I mean, I think I'll go with the Jaguars in this one. They have looked legit lately with that offense. ETN's having a stellar year. I mean, that team has looked great.
I agree. I always wonder about coming out of a bye, though. I think, if I read it correctly, the 49ers are 4-1 coming out of a bye the last few years. So that's always intriguing to look at that. Deebo Samuel's back also. I think it'll be a close game. I do think the Jags maybe win at home as well. So I like that call there. How about your under the radar play here?
So I'm going to take the receivers and most consistent out of Jacksonville, and that's been Christian Kirk. And I know his last week before the bye, he didn't have the best week in the world, but now he gets the 49ers defense that is the 4th worst against the pass, and I can see them really going pass heavy against them, and Christian Kirk having another huge day as he's had multiple times this year already.
Yep. I like that. I think Kirk is the guy there in that matchup. My guy is Brock Purdy this week. So he has been playing great early in the year, but the last couple weeks had a couple multiple interception games, but he's coming out of a bye, gets Deebo Samuel back. I think he's going to have a big showing in this matchup. And even though he's had those turnovers from a fantasy perspective, he still hasn't been bad the last couple games. He's thrown for 270 plus yards each of those last 2 games, still helping fantasy teams despite the turnovers. Now he gets a bad Jags defense coming out of a bye. Jags are 29th overall against the pass, allowing 274.9 passing yards per game. I'm looking for him to rebound in a big week, in a big way this week and get it going. All right, we got a couple questions over here, Henry. Let's get to one of those. What does it say about Tony Pollard that even against a potentially worst in NFL history Giants run defense, he doesn't do much? I'm kind of skeptical of him having any value. What's your thoughts on Pollard? I agree. He's been a big disappointment.
He has these last couple of weeks, and I think his last good game was against the Chargers, where he had like 7 catches for like 80 yards or something. So it's a lot of it's coming from his pass catching. And these last couple of weeks, he's faced some tough run defenses. I will give him that, but he has been pretty disappointing this year. I mean, if he doesn't have a good week this week against New York, I'd be very worried about him.
4 straight games with less than 55 rushing yards. They're just not getting it done on the ground. It helps him if he gets a volume at receiver, but he hasn't really had any huge games. So I am a little worried about him personally. And he hasn't had a rushing touchdown since week 1 as well. I mean, I don't think I'd want to sell him at this point because I think his value is really low and you probably paid up to get him. So I think you're just going to have to ride it out and hope he gets going. And maybe the fact that the Cowboys are actually throwing the ball really well at this point could be a good thing for that running game, kind of opening it up as defenses try to key on stopping Dak Prescott in the passing game. So maybe that'll help Pollard. I think you're just going to have to ride it out, though. I am a disgruntled Pollard owner as well. I have him in a few of my leagues, and he just hasn't really lived up to the billing, unfortunately. I thought he was going to have a monster season, but he really has not done that. Fewer than 10 fantasy points, 4 of 5 games. So really kind of disappointing. Like I said, hopefully he gets it going in the coming weeks. Maybe teams start keen on stopping that pass, and that opens up things for him. All right, Henry, let's talk about the next game. This is another pretty good game, in my opinion. Saints 5-4 at the Vikings 5-4. Joshua Dobbs came off the bench out of nowhere with little practice to lead his team to a come from behind victory last week. Can they do it again at home against the Saints?
Yeah, I'll take the Vikings in this one again. I mean, the Saints, they're just very on and off, in my opinion. Like last week, they looked pretty good, but then there's other weeks where they kind of fall off and don't look the best. But with Dobbs now probably knowing more of the playbook, and I mean, he looked legit last week already in that offense. I mean, he could have another good game, and I could take them again.
I agree. I think the Vikings are going to win too. I'm kind of most encouraged by their defense. They're kind of doing a better job defensively. They were horrific early in the season against the pass, but they've kind of shored things up in that area. The Saints are playing better offensively, though. Derek Carr finally looks to be on the same page with his receivers and getting that offense clicking. I think it'll be a close game. I say the Vikings squeak it out at home, though. Okay, Henry, who is your under the radar play for this one?
So speaking of those Saints wide receivers, I'm going to go with Michael Thomas. Last week, he had a little goose egg out there, but I mean, Vikings secondary hasn't been the best all around. I know it's gotten better, but I'll take the Michael Thomas having a rebound game against the Vikings this week.
Yeah, it always seems like when these star receivers have a game where they're not targeted or they don't do much, they make it a point to get them more involved. So I like the rebound play there with Thomas. I like a different pass catcher. I don't know if he's a pass catcher or runner, whatever he is, but Taysom Hill has moved into must-start territory, in my opinion. He's 10th overall in fantasy tight end scoring. That was after doing like nothing in the first couple games of the season. He's first overall his last 3 games in tight end fantasy scoring. So he's been getting a lot of works as a runner, as a pass catcher, as a thrower. 12 plus fantasy points, 3 straight games. I'm playing him again this week against the Vikings. I feel good about him as my tight end number 1. They've allowed some big passing games this year. I know that I've mentioned the Vikings doing better against the pass lately, but still think they have some holes in that area. So I think Hill could do well in this matchup. We both picked Saints for our under the radar place, Henry. We picked the Vikings to win. So we're kind of contradicting ourselves a little bit there, but regardless, it should be a good game to watch. Looking forward to that. Let's do another question here, Henry. Start Donta Foreman or James Conner this week? Herbert, I just saw Khalil Herbert is activated off injured reserve, but they're not going to play him tonight. I saw a report on that. So it looks like Foreman will get the touches as this owner mentioned here. But who do you like, Foreman or Conner? That's a tough call, kind of a coin flip, in my opinion.
So James Conner, I don't really know his status so far, but I'd be worried about him playing a ton of snaps his first game back from IR. So I'd maybe lean towards Foreman in this one against a bad Panthers run defense, especially with them being without Brian Burns tonight on that D line.
I agree. I think I would go Foreman too, just because I don't know Conner's workload. And plus, Conner hasn't been getting a lot of catches, which has kind of helped him in the past. He has just 3 catches his last 4 games that he's played. He had 5 in the opener, but just 3 catches his last 4 games. I wish he got more work in the passing game. I know Foreman doesn't get work in the passing game either, but he's getting the volume running the ball. Season high 20 carries last week. So I probably lean Foreman as well. I think it's kind of the safer play. Connor probably has a higher ceiling, but I probably lean Foreman in this matchup just because of the volume I think he'll get with that offense tonight in that game against the Panthers. All right, next game, Henry. Let's go on to the Packers 3-5 at the Steelers 5-3. This game kind of two teams that are kind of underachieving in my opinion, especially the Packers. Steelers also haven't just looked very good. I know they're 5-3. I just don't think they're a very good team. Do you think the Steelers win this game at home, though?
I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. I mean, they looked better last week. Not amazing, but they've looked better, especially if Aaron Jones finally being back, who I will go in is going to be my pick this week. But I'll take the Packers in
Yeah,
this
go
one.
ahead and talk about Aaron Jones as your pick for this week.
Yeah, he just had 20-plus touches against the Rams, and now he gets a not-so-good run defense with the Steelers. I could see him having another great game in this one. He caught a couple passes last week, see him do that again, and get him a lot of carries also.
Yep, I think Jones has kind of been unleashed, and it makes a difference in that offense. He's much better than A.J.
Mm-hmm.
Dillon, so I like that call. I don't know. I think the Steelers might win the game at home, though. The Packers just have not impressed me very much this year. So I say the Steelers win a close one at home. And I really like Deontay Johnson. I know that he's not really a sleeper type player because he's, had some big seasons in the past, 100+ catches, but he's kind of flown under the radar, in my opinion. And he's been great since returning from a hamstring injury. 9th overall in fantasy receiver score in his last 3 games. He has at least 5 receptions and 79 yards all of those 3 games. Also, just getting a lot of volume in that offense. I know the Green Bay pass defense has actually been pretty good statistically, but I think those stats are kind of skewed. They've played some bad pass offenses, so I think that secondary can have some issues at times, and I think Johnson's going to be a good play again this week. I'm definitely going to
Mm-hmm.
lean him there. I did see someone mention in the chat that the offense is going to be different with Kyler Murray back. I completely agree. I just still don't know about the usage of James Conner in his first game back. How healthy is he? So I think he's a little bit of a risk. I kind of want to take a wait and see approach with him. And I'm kind of intrigued to see how they use Murray. Are they going to run him as much coming back from a torn ACL? Is he going to want to take off on his own? So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Any thoughts on that offense with him?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it will be better, especially because they paid Murray a lot of money, so they obviously believe he's going to be really good. But I think that offense will improve, maybe not this week, but in the coming weeks, just because this week is, I mean, it's his first week back from an ACL tear. You're
Yeah.
not going to be amazing immediately. But yeah, I could see it offense being better than the stretch. This week, I'd be a little worrisome, especially if Connor and Murray, just because they're both coming back from injuries. Well, if injured, they're not going to be 100% probably, or at least that much of a snap. Well, Murray will be, but still.
Yeah. We have another question on here, Henry. Pick 2 receivers and a flex play. Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Chuba Hubbard, Khalil Herbert. So maybe I'll go first on this one, Henry. I think Evans and Deebo, I'm playing them. Deebo practiced in full already this week. I think Evans is a top 10 plate receiver in his matchup as well. So I think they're the plays for sure. After that, I think it gets clouded. It's a tough call. I might lean Cooper. I know the Ravens defense is good, but I think they're playing from behind, have to throw the ball a lot. I have no faith in Chuba Hubbard. I know he's been getting the bulk of the work, but he hasn't done much with it. And Herbert's not going to play most likely this week. Ridley's been up and down. So I'm probably going to lead Cooper after Evans and Deebo. Any thoughts for you? You can
Yeah, I'd
disagree.
go Evans and Deebo, especially at receiver, but I might lean towards Ridley just because I think there could be a good amount of points scored in that one. I don't know much about Amari. He's been very up and down this year. Same with Ridley, but Ridley just came off a pretty good game. I could see him having another game like this maybe against the 49ers. They don't have the best pass defense, but we'll see.
It is a better matchup. I agree. Ridley probably has a better matchup over Cooper. It's a tough call between those two. I just don't like Chuba that much. I want to pull up his stats here for the last few games. He has had a lot of carries. He has 15+ carries, 3 straight games, but he's reached double-digit fantasy points just 2 of those 3 games, and he just hasn't produced big numbers. So I think he's kind of has the highest floor, so he might be the safest play of those guys. But I'm going bigger, so I'm looking at Ridley or Cooper. Like Henry likes Ridley, I like Cooper. So That's our thoughts on that question. Good question, though. All right, next game, Henry. Titans 3-5 at the Buccaneers 3-5. So Will Levis has been playing some good football since
Mhm.
being inserted as a starter. He's been named the starter going forward as well. Ryan Tannehill is now the backup. Who do you like in this game, first of all, Henry, before we get to your pick?
Well, you just spoke of him, Will Levis. Buccaneers just had a bad game, and CJ Stroud just went heavy on that defense. And I could see Will Levis also having a field day with how he's looked so far in the passing game. I could see him having a great game in this one. It could be a great sleeper play at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. And he threw for some yards last week despite not scoring.
Mhm.
His air yards are really good. He really likes to air it out. That helps his fantasy value, in my opinion. You got to like those big play guys in the passing game. I like Levis as well in this matchup. I think it could be a high scoring game. Titans defense not very good as well. My guy's Chris Godwin. He's kind of fallen down a lot of the rankings this year. People have been disappointed with him, just hasn't produced those huge games. I think Evans is a top 10 play, but I'm not steering away from Godwin also. He's been more hit or miss, had just 2 catches last week for 16 yards, but he was targeted 6 times in that game. Still has at least 12 fantasy points, 4 or 5 games. Titans allow the 7th most fantasy points to receivers. I'm not fading Godwin despite his poor showing last week. As I mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of times they like to get these star receivers involved after they don't do much, and I think they're going to make it a point to get Godwin involved this week. All right, Henry. Next game: Falcons 4-5 at the Cardinals 1-8. Cardinals get back Kyler Murray, as we mentioned.
Mhm.
Some questions about him in the chat. Are the Falcons going to lose this game to the Cardinals with Kyler Murray back? What do you think there? Cardinals are a bit of a mess.
Man, this is kind of a toss-up in my opinion. I'll probably lean towards the Falcons as this one, but I do not like the Falcons either. Arthur Smith does not know how to use his weapons, it seems.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I don't know what to say about the Falcons though anymore. The Cardinals, there's kind of a reason, but they'll have a lot of picks this year. I hope next year brings a new year, new team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a tough pick for me also. I don't know who I want to go with here. I might just say the Cardinals with Kyler Murray back, but they have issues defensively now also. So it'll be a close game. I actually think some points will be scored. So there's some fantasy options here. Who's your under the radar pick for this one?
I'll go with Trey McBride of Arizona on this one. I mean, Murray, I don't know how much you're gonna limit him, but I'm gonna go with the tight end, and he might check the ball down to you a little bit. I mean, Trey McBride's had a couple good games already this year. There's no Zach Ertz. I mean, Trey McBride could have a pretty good game with Murray back.
I agree. I think McBride could do well also. He did not do much last week, had a huge game the previous week. I like Marquise Brown now that Kyler Murray's back. I think it's a huge boost for him. Take some chances down the field. He was targeted 8 times last week, Brown, in a bad QB situation with Tune starting. He has at least 7 targets, all but the first game of the season, getting a ton of volume. I think that's going to be the case even more with Murray back. Brown's still 28th overall in fantasy receiver scoring despite all these QB issues this year. I think his stock's going up. He's a great buy low candidate, in my opinion. His numbers still aren't even that bad, even with the QB issues, but I think they're just going to go up and get better now that Murray's back. Really kind of excited about his prospects for the rest of the season. All right, Henry, another game that I think is going to be a really good one. 6-2 Lions at the Chargers, 4-4. Chargers starting to get it going a little bit. Defense is playing better, getting after that QB better than they have than they have in the past earlier this season. So the defense is kind of starting to turn around a little bit. Could be a really high scoring game here. The Lions going to
Mhm.
rebound, win at home in this matchup, win on the road in this matchup. You think they're going to win the Lions, or are you going to go with the Chargers?
I'm going with the Chargers in this one. Their offense looked pretty good lately. I know last week wasn't the best week against the Jets, but the Jets do have one of the best defenses in football. But I'm going with the Chargers in this one. They look pretty good recently. They got everyone healthy besides Mike Williams, obviously, but they're looking pretty good. That defense is also turning it around a little bit.
So is a Charger your pick for your under the radar play in this one, or are you going with a Lion?
I'm going with the Lion in this one. So I just talked about the Chargers defense is playing better, but they haven't been the best against the pass. And I'm going to go with the deep threat the Lions have in Jameson Williams. He had a couple catches the past couple of weeks. And this week, I mean, he's that deep ball threat. This one could be a high scoring one. He could get a couple of big plays in this one.
I agree. A lot of points to be had. So you look at the fringe players that have a chance to break some big plays, and I definitely think Jameson Williams fits the mold. He's a St. Louis guy as well. That's where we're filming from here. So we got some rooting interest for him for sure. He's been explosive player throughout his career. So it should be exciting to see what he can do. And I'm kind of the same way. I like a guy for the Chargers who's kind of like Winston Williams, and that's Quentin Johnston. He played a season high 83% of the snaps last week with Josh Palmer out. He didn't do much. He had just 2 catches for 14 yards. But as you mentioned, Henry, the Jets really good pass defense. So
Mhm.
I'm not gonna get too worried about his low output in this matchup. Lions not so much. High scoring game here. They allow about 21 points per game. They've been just so against the pass as well. So I think Johnson could have a big showing in this matchup if he gets that much playing time once again with Palmer out of the lineup. And I saw someone mention in the chat too that Kyler Murray loves throwing to Greg Dortch. So pick him up in fantasy. That's a good call. Dortch is a guy that he's looked to in the past, and uh, never know. Could be a sleeper there. Good speculative pick up there. Good call by the better boss. All right, let's go to the next game, Henry. Giants 2-7 at the Cowboys 5-3. I think the line in this one was like, I have to look it up. It was like 17. It was
Oof.
crazy. I think they weren't even allowing you to bet on the money line in Vegas at one point. It's 16 and a half. This is going to be an ugly game in my opinion. I think the Cowboys are going to just absolutely blow them out
Yep.
with DeVito at QB again for the Giants. But any hope at all for any Giants in this matchup, or do you like the Cowboys as your under the radar pick?
There is no hope for the Giants in this one. I don't even know if Saquon's gonna have that good of a game because they're not gonna be able to run the ball.
Yep.
DeVito isn't very good, but man, these Cowboys are very up and down with how they play, though. So, I mean, this one they'll get back on track after the loss at the Philadelphia and pummel the Giants in this one.
Who's your under the radar pick for this matchup?
I'll go Jake Ferguson. He's had a pretty good game last week against Philadelphia, and now he gets a team that isn't very good against the pass and the tight end in general. So I'm going to go Ferguson have a good game in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Cowboys roll, and I'm going to say game script matters. So I think the Giants are going to be losing by a lot, and that means they're going to have to throw the ball, playing from behind. And I might take a chance on Wan'Dale Robinson. Got 5 targets last week, scored his first touchdown of the season. I think Robinson is the best option in the passing game with Darren Waller out. He has 13 plus fantasy points, 2 of 4 games as well. So if you want to take a chance, a guy that might rack up the targets in a game the Giants are getting blown out, Wan'Dale Robinson might be that guy. Let's just hope DeVito has enough time to get the ball off because that pass rush is going to be all over him, and that line is a disaster for the Giants, unfortunately. All right, Henry, next game on the slate, the Commanders 4-5 at the Seahawks 5-3. Commanders have put up some points this year. Seahawks have as well, but they've been kind of struggling a little bit here lately. The Seahawks, especially offensively, I thought Geno Smith was going to have a better season, but he hasn't been very good for the most part, unfortunately, which has kind of hurt them. But they're still 5-3 overall. They're at home. Do you think they win this one?
Yeah, I'll take the Seahawks in this one. Like you said, they haven't played the best lately, but the Commanders' defense is slowly declined. And speaking of that, my pick this week is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Seattle. He has 3 straight double-digit points. He's slowly becoming one of Geno's favorite targets in this one. And now he has a Commanders' defense hasn't been very good against the pass this year. He's having another good game, especially with the other receivers in that core being beat up a little bit.
I like that call. I think the Seahawks do win at home as well. I think this will be a close game, though. They're tough to play at home with that. They call it the 12th man. Is that right? What they have that big ceremony before the game, the flag ceremony with a guest who does that every week. But they get an amped up crowd there. I think they'll win at home in a close matchup. But I really like Sam Howell. I think he's had a breakout season. I think he's a real deal. 8th overall in fantasy quarterback scoring for the season. He has 20 plus fantasy points, 2 straight games, and he has hit that mark 5 times this year. That's as good as any QB out there. He's getting a lot of chances too. At least 40 pass attempts, 5 of his last 6 games. So they throw the ball a ton. They don't run it very well. Seahawks not very good against the pass, 23rd overall, allow the 15th most fantasy points of quarterbacks also. So I think that Howell keeps it rolling. That passing game does as well in a game that might be playing from behind. So I think he does well again this week. Another question here, Henry, on the board here. Start 1 for the week, full PPR. Kareem Hunt, Zach Moss, Tajay Spears. So it's kind of the battle of the backups here. Which backup do you think is the best play in this one?
Man, this is a close call on this one. I mean, Kareem Hunt has been decent, but I worry about his upside against that Ravens run defense, which is probably might be the best in football right now. Zach Moss is also losing a lot of touches lately to Jonathan Taylor, but Tajay Spears is also intriguing to me this week as he's outstaffing Derrick Henry on those pass catching downs. He has a lot of upside in getting those pass catches. I mean, especially if you're in a full PPR league, I might lean towards Spears in this one.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I actually probably would go Hunt. Like you said, Moss is really losing out of the carries. Didn't have a catch last week, just 7 carries, didn't run for many yards. Hunt's found the end zone 4 straight games, though. So I might take a chance on him. It worries me that he doesn't catch the ball either, really, just 1 catch his last 3 games. It's a tough call. I probably lean Hunt, but I can see what you're saying with Spears as well, Henry, though. It's a close call, unfortunately. I wish Moss was getting more volume like he was the last before Taylor came back. But right when Taylor came back, he got some work, but now he's kind of losing it even more at this point. So that worries me there. So I probably lean Hunt, but it's a close call with those 3 options. All right, Henry. Next game, the Jets 4-4 at the Raiders 4-5. I don't know what's going to happen here. This because the Jets' offense is a disaster. I saw someone ask why isn't Trevor Siemian getting a chance to Robert Salia. Right, that's how you pronounce his last name. How come I can't?
Yeah.
I don't know why I had a blank there, but I saw someone ask him and he kind of just froze. He didn't know why. I would give Siemian a shot. Why not at this point? I mean, Zach Wilson's a disaster. Unfortunately, he just doesn't seem to process things quickly, locks onto a receiver. So it just worries me about that offense. I wish they could stay afloat a little better because that defense is playing really well. Who do you like in this game? You think the Raiders keep it going with their new coach, Antonio Pierce? They looked good last week.
Yeah, I think I'll take them again in this one. The Raiders really impressed me last week. I know it was the Giants, even without Daniel Jones, but they looked pretty good last week. They finally did what McDaniel should have been doing, leaning on those stars. Like Jacobs had a ton of work in that one. I mean, Adams could have gotten a little more, but they really leaned heavy on Jacobs. I think that's what they're going to need to do to win these games down the stretch.
Yeah, I think Jacobs could be a fantasy winner the rest of the season. I think he's going to get a ton of work going forward. So who's your under the radar pick for this game?
So I'll go with the Raiders defense after watching Zach Wilson play in that offense. Raiders defense just had a great game last week against New York. Now I get the Jets, who Jack Wilson just turned the ball over a lot too last week. They turned the ball over to the Chargers a lot last week, sacked a bunch. I mean, he does not look good, and I'm going to take the Raiders defense to pummel him in this one.
Yeah, the Raiders defense getting after the QB as well. So they've done well there. So ironically, Henry, I'm going to pick the Jets defense as my under the radar play. So we're picking both defenses. So I guess we think the game's going to be 0-0 or 3-0. What's going to happen?
This
No
is going to be
point.
a low scoring one.
Yeah, I like the Jets defense as well. Like you mentioned, the Raiders, though, they have Aiden O'Connell starting. I don't think he's the best. I think they're going to run heavy here. The Jets have been outstanding against the pass, allowing less than 200 passing yards 4 of their last 5 games. I think they're going to struggle once again to throw the ball Las Vegas in this matchup. So I think I could see the Jets causing some turnovers against a rookie QB, getting after him, getting some sacks as well. So we like both defenses here in a low-scoring game. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. All right, Henry, we're on to the Monday night game. We made it through all the games. We have not done that yet this year on the show, I think. So kudos to you for helping me get through all these games. We have one more Monday night game, Broncos 3-5 at the Bills 5-4. Another primetime game that doesn't look very good, unfortunately. Anybody, first of all, the game, you like the Bills to win this game? You think they're going to win big?
So I'll take the Bills this way, but I'm going to say this game's going to be halfway close, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, Bills' defense has not been very good lately. The Broncos' offense has actually been better than I expected, I guess, out of Russell Wilson. And, I mean, it could be fairly close, in my opinion. Bills haven't been, very as demanding and, amazing as we thought they would be. Dominating, thank you.
Exactly.
As we thought they'd be. But I'll go with James Cook in this one as my sleeper play. Broncos are the worst run defense in football this year. I know James Cook hasn't been very good lately, but he got the bulk of the carries last week. I can see him getting him again this week, and against a very, very bad run defense at the Broncos. He can have a huge game this one. We see to get him into the end zone one time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they have Leonard Fournette up for this game. I think even if Fournette plays, I'm not expecting him to have a huge role right away. I think he could be used more on passing downs. So I still think Cook's the man, at least in the short term. I like that call with him. I think he could have a good game as well. I love Dalton Kincaid. Talking about another tight end here, we've mentioned a few of them. I think he's moved into must-start territory. Fifth in tight
Mhm.
end scoring his last 3 games, at least 5 catches, 3 straight games. Season high 11 targets last week. Broncos also, as you mentioned, they're not good against the run, but they've allowed the 4th most fantasy points to tight end. So while they've done better against the pass, they've struggled to stop the tight end. And Kincaid has, I think he could benefit this week and have a big showing in this matchup. All right, Henry, we got through all the games for week.
Mhm.
Appreciate you joining me and getting through all these games. A lot of fun talking with you. Hope you start feeling better. Get
Yep.
back to school because I need you out of the house. No more Henry in the house. I need to start focusing more. Sorry.
Wow.
I Yeah, I know. Throw you under the bus there. Also, don't forget to take advantage of our super shootout this week. Just a great game. Just a 3-game slate. You pick any players from those 3 games into your starting lineup for just $10. You can win $1,000. You finish first overall. It's 70% sold out. Go to rtsports.com/super hyphen shootout to sign up for that contest and take advantage of that promo code we're doing with Fantasy Alarm. It's Alarm23 is the promo code, 100% deposit match up to $200. Should be a lot of fun this week. Some great games, even with some of these good teams on a bye this week. So again, there's that promo code Alarm23, rtsports.com/alarm. Take advantage of that. Sign up for the super shootout. Get in the game as well with the DFS and the pick'em games also. Henry loves to do those pick'em contests
Mhm.
too. Appreciate everybody in the chat too. I always love talking with people in there, getting questions from them and getting interaction with the listeners out there, the viewers, I should say. So a lot of fun this week, Henry, being with you on the
Mhm.
show. Good luck to you in your week 10 games. How are your games going? How's your season going so far, by the way, before I let you
Yeah, a
go?
lot of my main leagues are doing great right now. I think in my 2 big ones, I'm 8-1 and 6-3, so pretty good start to the year.
Good deal. Good deal. You made some making any moves coming up to for the playoff run? You thinking about acquiring anybody, or you sitting good with your rosters at this point?
I'm trying to acquire a couple of those running backs that are coming off of IR recently, like Kyron or A-Chain. I like to try to get them for a decently low price if you can, but I don't know. Not a lot of owners are budging right now.
Yeah, that's a good move. I love A Chain going forward because Mostert's actually kind of struggled a little bit
Mhm.
the last couple weeks. Found the end zone last week, but still, he's kind of been struggling a little more. So I think that he could start to give way to A Chain. I like him as a pickup for the
Mhm.
rest of the season. All right, Henry, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody out there for watching. Good luck in all those Week 10 games. This has been Jeff Power for Real Time Fantasy Sports.